Good morning.
Oh, good
Morning.
morning.
How you doing, Gail? Nice to see you.
Oh, thank you. You too.
Excellent. I remember. I know our interview is going to start like right pretty soon, but I remember we've done a lot of events at home on Sheridan with the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. I'm the president of the chamber, and I got to change my name on this thing. So it's Trudy on there. But yeah, I love your organization, and I've got some stories to share. Some positive stories to share on this interview.
Wonderful.
So I'll just bop in and out. It's all about you and what you want to say and what you want to promote. And I'll just bop in and out between every once in a
Oh, so this list of questions from Trudy, are you going to go through them or how's it?
That'll be for Trudy to go through. I'll just
I see.
offer little anecdotes and stories now and again to keep it flowing.
Okay.
Not too much from me. It's you and Trudy.
Okay.
This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us at WZRD via Zoom a fellow wizard along with our special guest from H.O.M.E, Gail Schechter, Executive Director of Housing Opportunities and Maintenance for the Elderly. Welcome, Gail, and welcome, Bill.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you.
Gail, first of all, how did H.O.M.E founder Michelle Solomon's work with the Little Brothers of the Poor help initiate H.O.M.E? And was it even before 1991? And how has this philosophy changed or developed?
Yes, it's such a wonderful story, the founding of Housing Opportunities and Maintenance for the Elderly, which actually is about to enter its 40th year in 2022. We were founded in 1982, and we are an outgrowth of Little Brothers. Michel Salmon came from France, where Little Brothers was founded. He came to Chicago. It's interesting that Little Brothers, starting in France after the war, all about caring for reaching out to low-income elderly who were isolated, widows and widowers after World War II, people coming and giving them not only food and other sustenance, but companionship, recognizing that people need more than just bread, they need respect. And so the organization started in the United States in Chicago in 1959 with Michelle. And the reason that H.O.M.E became an outgrowth a little over a decade later is that folks recognized at Little Brothers that the pressing issue for seniors in Chicago was overwhelmingly housing, especially affordability. People were spending so much of their incomes for housing or living in substandard conditions. And that's really why H.O.M.E was formed.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this of course this need is we know that it's very widespread in Chicago, but just for a little bit more background, since Little Brothers was helping the elderly, did this wonderful idea also spread to other cities as well?
Interestingly enough, H.O.M.E and the concept of housing opportunities and maintenance for the elderly, which is surrounding older adults with younger people living in intergenerational settings, or else being in your home and having the community surround you, it's unique to Chicago. As far as we know, other Little Brothers is in other parts of the country and in the world, but there's been no offshoot like H.O.M.E.
And we do know that you have at least three buildings, right? That are specifically intergenerational housing communities.
Yes, so our first building within a year of our founding and still going strong is Pat Crowley House in Edgewater. It's a building that used to be a 6-flat, a traditional sort of 3-story 6-flat brick that was converted into housing for a dozen seniors, 4 younger resident assistants who live and work in the building. And I shouldn't say just live and work, it's really a whole communal experience, a family style experience. Those 4 RAs, as we call them, resident assistants, are in one apartment on the 3rd floor, and then the other apartment on the 3rd floor is a family, 2 parents and their little boy. So, we like to say that this little child has has many, many grandparents.
Yes.
And it's just a wonderful experience. So that's the Pat Crowley House was our first, and then in 1994 we built from the bottom up the first intergenerational building in Chicago, deliberately created, called the Natalie Salmon House. And by the way, these are all affordable buildings. For most of the people there are about 30% of the area median income, which is pretty low income. So that building is 5 stories, and the first 4 floors are seniors living in private apartments. Plus there's a family, 3-bedroom apartments, 1 on each floor, family with children. And on the 5th floor is that communal model where there's a big dining room and a kitchen. There's 15 seniors, 4 resident assistants, and we have a cook Monday through Friday. The RAs cook on weekends, or else we can have guest chefs, which is a nice opportunity. And we build community. We have these 2 beautiful community rooms on the ground floor, and we encourage people to come together and do activities or what have you. So, and then our 3rd building is a small, it's an 8-unit building in the Belmont Cragen neighborhood, 8 private apartments, including 1 for a family. And we're looking to build our first South Side building together with the Renaissance Collaborative in Washington Park.
I could say that I have experience with the Natalie Salmon House over on Sheridan and Sherwin. It's got those orange awnings, and Gail, it really is community. We've always been welcome there as a Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce, and the community has been invited in there as well. I met that young family when they were just having the child way back in the day. And it's been a little while since I've been there, but there have been art events, crafts events, and also the chamber hosted a couple of our financial wellness workshops at the Natalie Salmon House, and it was really great. So it is community. I haven't been to the other ones, but the one in Rogers Park has been always open and welcome and inclusive.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that you had that experience. And the other thing we're really proud of is that we are also fully, we're fully sensitive and open to the LGBT population. We have SAGE Care, that Services and Advocacy for LGBT Elders certification. So we're also interracial, interfaith. So, we really pride ourselves on being inclusive and welcoming. Because like our founder said, Lilo Salmon, who was Michelle's wife, she said, life doesn't segregate by age. So why should we? And I would add that, life doesn't segregate in any way. It certainly shouldn't.
Exactly. How does H.O.M.E find which families to live with the elderly in these intergenerational communities?
So families find us, people find us through our website, referrals. We're pretty well known to all social service agencies. The city of Chicago, if somebody calls and says, I'm a low-income senior and I need help for whatever reason, they they give us H.O.M.E's number, and of course, I wish I could say we could solve everybody's problem, but we do the best we can. It's good to be known, and it's on the flip side of it, it's sad that there are so few organizations that serve this population.
What about the young families? How are they able to to apply and live in that building? How do you choose them? Because it's such a gift to be able to live in these buildings.
Yes, no, you're right. And I must say that we have so few family units, and there is such a demand that the waiting list right now for families is closed. But when it is open, you know, we advertise. I think the last time we filled the family unit at Pat Crowley House, it was many years ago, and you know, we put an ad out, and of course, people who want to live in the family unit, it's not just affordable housing. It's, you know, do you want to live in an atmosphere with seniors, and do you want to live your life sharing, you know, in community in some way? I mean, you have your private apartment, but it's expected that you will, you know, interact and contribute to the community.
I'm thinking that after this interview, there will be families that will be very interested. Where did you place your ad, and how could, you know, people check once in a while to see if there's any availability for housing for a young family in these intergenerational communities?
Well, they could certainly be sending us an email. Our email address is info@homeseniors.org. Our website is homeseniors.org. Also, eventually, knock on wood, we're going to be developing this 74-unit building with the Renaissance Collaborative on the south side, and obviously we're going to include units for grandparents raising grandchildren, as well as private apartments for seniors, and our communal model, which we call Good Life, by the way. So that'll be amazing. That won't happen probably for a couple of years, but there'll be opportunities there. But for now, I think people can just contact us, and we can at least put folks on the waiting list.
Do H.O.M.E elderly residents inquire about their own younger generations coming to live in H.O.M.E intergenerational communities?
It actually does happen. I mean, although most of the people who live in our buildings are people who, they seek us out not only for affordable housing, but because they're lonely. They have few or no family members or friends, and they want to be in a place where they can make new friends, and they can have privacy, but also a social life with people living next door. So they may not have, you know, people to refer. On the other hand, we've had some really cool situations in Good Life where someone's moved in, and then they've told their friend, and then their friend was able to move in, which is really nice. And our Good Life, that's the communal portion, we do have vacancies there. So we are, you know, always looking. And then in terms of family members in Natalie Salmon House that Bill was describing, we have some nice situations where we have some extended families in a couple of units, which is really quite nice.
Yes. What about pets? Are pets allowed? Because of course they provide companionship, and people like to talk about their pets.
Yeah, well, we allow service animals. You know, if you've got you know, for example, a service dog, but we don't allow pets because there's a lot of situations with allergies, and you know, a lot of people have immunocompromised health, and so that's the issue. But obviously, if somebody has a disability and a service animal, we're going to, you know, we're going to consider them.
Yes. What issues arise in the H.O.M.E intergenerational communities, and how do you address those issues?
What situations arise? You mean
Like issues, like maybe problems. if
Problems?
any? Yes.
You know, usually maybe people get along pretty well. They start to seem, you know, it feels like an extended family, especially since the buildings are not that big. Sometimes issues can happen, you know, over things like, you know, in our good life, there's, you know, a refrigerator, and maybe somebody, you know, might swipe somebody else's food or something like that. It's like, who ate my cheese? But normally people get along pretty well. It's fairly quiet. I mean, the important thing is, you know, we try to make sure to enforce, to make sure that the building is fairly quiet and that
And,
kind of thing.
Yes, and of course, it seems as if the folks who do apply to live there, they know exactly what they're getting into, and they welcome the community. They want to live there for the community.
Exactly. That's exactly right. We really do try to screen for that. You know, we let people know this isn't just any kind of apartment building. You know, are you willing to be, if you're a senior, are you willing to be in a place where there are some families with children? You know, is that okay with you? And so exactly.
Do the kids sometimes have homework help from the seniors?
Oh, yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, they enjoy. I think there's a mutual benefit between the children and the seniors, for sure.
What is most difficult about overseeing home, housing opportunities, and maintenance for the elderly?
What's most difficult, I would say, funding, because I don't know if you're aware of this alarming statistic, but only 2% of philanthropic funds go to groups that serve seniors. And so we're up against this all the time, and we are extremely grateful to those funders that do fund H.O.M.E's work year after year, individuals, foundations. But I would say that the most difficult is trying to maintain our, you know, a decent amount of funding.
And what would you say that the highest the funding, what does it go most to for home? Is it used for maintenance, for development? What is the most pressing need for the funding that you receive for home?
That's a good question. A lot of our funding, which we're very grateful for, is unrestricted. So we can apply it to any program that most needs it. Obviously, housing is important because the rents are very low, and we have activities, as I mentioned, and the resident assistants. We have managers for Pat Crowley House and Natalie Salmon, and we have to pay for those, and the rents don't necessarily cover that. But also our next biggest program with housing is our upkeep and repair program, which we're really proud of. That's where we serve low-income senior homeowners on the south and west sides of the city. We do home repairs. We've averaged about 100 homeowners per year. We have 3 full-time home repair specialists, and the senior only pays $25, and any cost for parts, like, you know, for example, a hot water heater or something like that, which they can go on a, you know, payment plan. But basically they're paying virtually nothing. We cover all the labor. Philanthropy covers the labor. We also have a small grant from the city of Chicago through their small accessible repairs for seniors program, but mostly it's philanthropy. And, you know, so that's of a tremendous help, but there's also a cost involved when you've got, you know, 3 full-time people, plus a coordinator, et cetera.
Of course. And how long is your waiting list? Because it's such an important program, and there is a great need for home repair.
Yes, well, we have a 4 to 5 month waiting list for our upkeep and repair program, although even that is deceptive, because if somebody calls, the office calls Mike Laz, our community programs director, and he ascertains that this is an emergency situation. In fact, he recently had a call, and this is not unusual, though for your listeners, it might be, quite alarming. A woman with multiple sclerosis who had leaks in her house. And so she shut the water, but she didn't realize she shut the water for the entire house. So here she was, a woman with a senior with a disability with no water. So as you can imagine, Mike makes the quick assessment that this is an emergency and needs to go to the top of the list, and sends our repair specialist to that woman's house. So emergencies go to the top. But yeah, there's just such need. People with, as I say, leaks. We also help with bathroom accessibility, grab bars and that sort of thing, some light carpentry, some electrical work. We were in a house, I don't know, I think it was about 2 years ago, where a senior had only one working outlet. She had everything in, with all extension cords in one plug. So obviously we had to go in and deal with that. And the other thing we pride ourselves in is we don't just deal with the one problem. If we see other problems in a house, we feel obligated to, we address them all. So we end up doing on average about 6 or 7 repairs per house.
I would imagine that maybe you might have an issue with hoarders or something like that, like just things that people do that just are not safe or acceptable for your housing.
Oh, yes. Are you talking about in terms of the upkeep and repair program?
Or the residents,
Or the
the residents hoarding inside of their dwellings. I'd imagine you have like all the problems that anyone else would have, and you have to deal with all these different things, and you're like putting out fires all the time with so many residents, because they're people.
You're absolutely right. You should sit in sometime on some of our staff meetings, and these come up. But the thing that's wonderful about H.O.M.E is that we always work with people with a lot of compassion and understanding, and we try to figure out, okay, we have there's a hoarding situation in an apartment, and one, for example, in our buildings. Okay, how do we work with this person so that we can gently help them, even making some room and that kind of thing. So our to navigate and prevent infestations and all of that. So we're very fortunate that we have people with social work backgrounds on our staff and know how to talk to these people, when these situations come up.
What is most rewarding about overseeing home housing opportunities and maintenance for the elderly?
Oh, well, what's most rewarding? Just all the people. I really, and it's not just hyperbole, I really love the residents in our buildings. I love talking to the people who use our community program. So it's not just upkeep and repair, but we help people with moving. We actually have a program where we cover the entire cost of a move, up to $800, but that's pretty much all moves of seniors moving within the city. And our shopping bus, where we serve about 25 senior buildings in the city with a 14-passenger bus. And I just and I've taken time to talk to people who we've served, particularly over the last year during the pandemic, and going to the buildings. And I would say that's just the most rewarding. And it's not just the seniors, but the resident assistants and the families, and just because I have to confess, I'm a social being just like everybody else, and it feeds my soul as well to be with the people that we serve, and our fantastic staff too. And board. I must add that all the people that make our home family, as it were.
How did you come to become executive director at H.O.M.E? What was it in your background that made you such a great fit?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So my background is actually as a tenant organizer back in the early 1980s, right out of college. In fact, as a senior in college, I helped organize tenants, students that were renting and getting the shaft from landlords. So when I went back to New York, where I'm from, I became an organizer for an organization in Brooklyn. And then some years later, moved out here in 1990. And I, after a couple of years, became the executive director of a fair and affordable housing advocacy organization that's now called Open Communities, covering the northern suburbs. So I was applying my organizing skills, all of, my interest in fair housing, non-discrimination, affordable housing. And that organization had a home sharing program where we helped people, usually seniors, needing extra income or companionship or services. We help them find people looking for affordable housing, wanting to be in the northern suburbs but not being able to afford the rent, but also being lonely, as you can imagine, very similar to H.O.M.E. So in fact, my organization placed some people, at the Pat Crowley House. And so we work closely with H.O.M.E. And I had a chance also, like Bill, to go and visit the Natalie Salmon House with a pastor back in the early 2000s. And I just thought, my goodness, this is the ideal. This is how people should live. And I even wrote an article in a national magazine where I mentioned H.O.M.E and its intergenerational model. So, so some years later, so I'd left Open Communities because I wanted to do new things after 22 years. I figured that was enough. I got into nonviolence, Dr. King's Kingian nonviolence philosophy, and I helped to co-found an organization doing nonviolence. But the opportunity came up for H.O.M.E. And I thought, I've always liked this organization. This is a chance to really, further this principle, this lifestyle. What I think is the kind of life that we're all meant to live. And so I applied, and I've now been the director for 3 years. And it just, I feel like this is where I'm meant to be.
Have you ever worked with or collaborated with the Metropolitan Tenants Organization, and have they ever referred some tenants to you? Because we do know of some senior residents there that would just love to be in your program.
Oh, Metropolitan Tenants Organization, that's also one of my favorite groups. I collaborated with MTO when I was running Open Communities, as you can imagine, on landlord-tenant issues. And training, we would love to do some work. In fact, John Bartlett, who's their director, had approached me a couple of years ago about our upkeep and repair program, because he was, they would love to see this for renters, because what we do is for homeowners. H.O.M.E is not at the stage where we don't have the capacity to expand in that direction, especially when there's a landlord in place, but in any event, we would love to do more work with them. I don't know if they're referring people to us, but they certainly know of us, and I feel like, they do grow. Oh yeah, we did collaborate with them recently around some advocacy around a senior tenants bill of rights.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think I heard about that. So what is the stage of that now? Is it is it getting along, or has it been accepted somewhere?
Well, that's the Jane Addams Senior Caucus, which is another fabulous organization, was taking the lead on that. And they approached me about, my thoughts on it. And it's a good, with my background, I was able to see, okay, this needs to be beefed up, whatever. And I brought in Metropolitan Tenants Organization and Access Living as well, which works for the rights of people with disabilities in Chicago, to take a look at it. We provided our comments to the Senior Caucus, and I believe they're still working on it. The Senior Caucus also got a great, with the help of actually the 49th Ward Alderman, Maria Haddon, an ordinance that mandated checking up on seniors during COVID, that landlords should monitor and see how they're doing.
Do you know, have landlords, how is that enforced? Do you know offhand how that, landlords have to check, and then do they have to log about when they have checked on their residents?
I really don't know how that's working, because that's not something that I, see here at home. What I do know, the one thing I can say is that since the eviction moratorium was lifted, we are getting more calls from seniors who are losing their housing, which is very concerning. But in terms of how well the city is enforcing this ordinance, I don't know, but it's something worth finding out for sure.
Definitely. And how about home? If some of the residents do not they notice their fellow residents, if they don't show up and haven't seen them for quite a while, then do you do well-being checks on them? Do you check on them if you haven't seen some residents for a while?
We definitely do. Our property manager always, checks on people. He knows when he doesn't see people, especially people who would be going to see him to chat, and then he doesn't see them, and then he goes and sees what's going on. But that's something that we always do, and people check up on each other too. It's really kind of nice, they'll say, I think so and so something's happening, and they'll alert us. So it's not even just home staff, but home's residents, keep track of one another.
How can interested seniors apply for your upkeep and repair program, your shopping bus, and even for the New Life units?
Oh, well, for all our programs, you can go on our website, of course, and which is homeseniors.org. If someone is interested in the upkeep and repair or the moving program, they can call Mike Laz, our community programs director, at 773-295-2709. That's 773-295-2709. And we're an organization where somebody still picks up the phone. So if they get the machine, it means he's on another call or out of the office. And then for our housing, there's always our central number, which is 773-921-7300. And then there is a form for each program on our website, as I mentioned.
That's wonderful. Yes, let's repeat this information later at the end of the interview again.
Yeah.
So how please describe for us how the home shopping bus program changed over the pandemic, and how long is the waiting list for that?
The shopping bus, I'm glad you asked me for clarification on that. So that's a program where we contract with the building, or the manager of the building. So it's pretty inexpensive. I mean, it's for a round trip, it's $95 a month. If there's one trip, obviously, if it's more, if there's two, but and that's it. The senior doesn't pay anything. And what's nice about the bus is it's not only a chance for a senior to get healthful food and even to have assistance in bringing your food up, because as you can imagine, if people don't have a car or don't have help, getting good, let's say, fresh produce is heavy and they can't carry it. And so maybe they won't get it if they have to do it themselves. So our transportation coordinator will help them bring the food in back into the building. But it's also a social occasion. It's a good camaraderie. Our driver, Ernest, has a good sense of humor, and the people on the bus, they essentially vote, where they're going. Oh, let's go to, Food for Less or something like that today. And it's also
like a field trip, huh?
Yeah, it's like a little field trip, and it's an accessible, as I mentioned, a 14-passenger bus. And we serve, even though we serve buildings throughout the city of Chicago, as you can imagine, with racial and economic inequities as they are, a lot of the people live in areas that others might call food deserts. In other words, there is no decent supermarket anywhere near where they live. So it's really an essential lifeline for people. I mean, we have some seniors, we do annual surveys, satisfaction surveys, and more than one senior has written on their survey that this is their only option for I mean, can you imagine, for buying food, their only option? So it's very sobering. And just as a sideline, during COVID, we had to shut down the beginning. If you remember, it's not that long ago, but the city pretty much shut down. And so the city had some, which was wonderful, some emergency funds. And we used those funds to try to serve people that we knew were isolated. And we used that for buying emergency groceries for people in the community program. So shopping bus, upkeep and repair, moving, and so that was like our way of trying to do something, while people were shut in and while we couldn't send our staff out.
But the staff did do like contactless delivery of the groceries to the residents, right?
Yes, like Instacart. Yeah.
And how about the shopping bus? How often do the residents are they able to go on a shopping trip? Is it once a week or less?
It really depends on what the what the contract is. So a lot of buildings, they pay for one trip a month. So, and of course, ideally for the seniors, earlier in the month is better, because that's when they, are more flush with their Social Security check comes in and they have, some money to spend. Some buildings do twice a month.
So it's the $95 is payment for one trip a month. That's what you meant earlier.
One trip for the whole bus. Mm-hmm. So it's really inexpensive. Especially if you're considering a whole building. Yeah.
When we were speaking about philanthropy a little bit earlier, I don't know if you've heard this one. I heard this one years ago. Bill Murray, he came in. Did you hear about this? Bill Murray came in and he gave $1 million to I don't know if it was to build the Natalie Salmon house or to renovate it, but he generously gave $1 million to the Natalie Salmon house in Rogers Park, and such a good thing. And I love Bill Murray. He's one of my favorite actors ever. But anyway, he's a comedian. So what he said was, I'm going to give you this $1 million, but the only deal is you'll never ask me for another dollar again. Just that guy's got a sense of humor.
Oh,
but
yeah.
he's a very generous soul.
He absolutely is. And he did that at the height of his fame too. So yeah, it was indeed for the building of Natalie Salmon House. He made it possible because he was very touched by the story. He was touched by the Salmons, Michelle and Lilo. And Michelle, by the way, is still alive. He's 90 years old. They retired back to Paris after the Salmon House was built. And the building is named for their only child, Natalie, who was hit and killed by a car. She was crossing Sheridan. She was only 16, and it was just a terrible, terrible thing. And this was in the late 80s, and the organization decided, and the Salmons, that the way to recognize her is to create this intergenerational building, because imagine she grew up with the Pat Crowley house with all these seniors who were like her grandparents. She grew up in this caring environment, and Bill Murray was very touched by that story. And you can see a video. He filmed a video, a fundraising video for the Salmon House, in which he's really quite funny. He runs around the empty lot that became the Salmon House and tears off signs that say no parking.
I would love to see that video. I've never seen that video. I am the Rogers Park enthusiast. I love the history of Rogers Park. I love Bill Murray, and I love your organization. I got to see that video.
Oh, well, it's on our website under videos. We managed to, the filmmakers, this wonderful woman named Loretta Smith, I tracked her down, and she gave me multiple DVDs, and we did a showing of it this past summer as part of a virtual fundraising event, and we have it up. It's just 17 minutes long, and it is fabulous. And actually, you can see, speaking of Rogers Park history, what it used to look like in the early 90s. Like across the street from the building now, there's a parking garage, which is, yeah, exactly. But you see this beautiful, sort of house with a porch that used to be there.
And that was the beautiful Shambhala Meditation Center.
That's it.
And before it was a women's shelter, and it started as the first Jewish, I don't know if it was a temple or synagogue, in Rogers Park. And the funny thing about that one was, it was Jennifer Pritzker who tore it down, but it was Jennifer Pritzker's great-great-grandfather who built it.
Really?
Yes, and it was so beautiful. I loved it so much. I fought to save it, but you can only do what you can do. Hoping for the best in the future.
Good for you. And by the way, let us know how we can be supportive of anything you're doing in Rogers Park, for sure.
Thank you. We'll connect again. We'll reconnect, and I'll be giving a visit when it's safe to do so.
Yes, thank you.
How are the intergenerational housing services different from the services to seniors who remaining in their homes? I know that there are the repair services, but is there any difference among those services between the two types?
In our housing, the services are really all about, what home can provide or at least facilitate. We really try to make sure that the seniors themselves are coming up with the kinds of programs that they would like to see. We come with ideas, And we have a housing support specialist. We have a staff person who is both, she's both an activities coordinator, but also really an organizer, because she pulls people together, and there's a resident association now at Natalie Salmon House. So, so we'll bring in, and also at Pat Crowley House, we partner with a lot of nursing schools, social work schools, to bring students in for wellness checks or workshops on healthy eating, or something called Matter of Balance, to prevent falls. But we also have a little writing group going on right now. We had a really great holiday Halloween party. So there's things like that go on in the buildings. In terms of what we offer seniors in the community programs, it's really just the services, but we like to emphasize that we're doing more than just the services. We're there to listen. I mean, a lot of people are really lonely, and they like to chat with our home repair specialist or moving coordinator or on the shopping bus. So it's one of those intangible things where you're really just providing that respect, that mutuality, that that's just what people need just as much as the home repair.
Mhm.
Beyond that, I mean, our thinking is that once you feel secure in your own home through those community programs, you're able to be as much out and about in the neighborhood as you would like to be. I mean, COVID accepting, but that's the philosophy behind our community programs.
Mhm. Well, if that writing group, if they have any pieces that they would like to share, and be sure to send them along. We would love to read them over the air. And we also, the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce also has an extensive social media platform as well. We would love to share their writings if they're willing to, if they would like to share with us.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, we're working right now with a woman, Janice Hertig, who used to be part of the community writing project at UIC. And it's, I don't know if you're familiar with Paulo Freire and popular education, but it's the idea that we all have the answers to our own problems inside of us. And we just need, we need to be heard. We need to be able to express ourselves. So it's not just a writing group related to, it's not about literacy or anything like that. It's about expressing your story and your voice.
No, that's beautiful.
It sounds kind of like an oral history project. And Rogers Park has done a lot of oral history projects in the past. People, verbally telling their story. It's wonderful.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Yeah, let us know if there's anything we can plug our residents into.
Mm-hmm. That would be, that's precious, actually. It's the oral history, and yeah. How is H.O.M.E helping the seniors in Black communities? I know that you're in the process of building that new community, new building on the south side. But how else?
Well, we're very conscious that Chicago has a history of racial segregation, and it's certainly not separate but equal. It's separate and very much unequal, where white communities or even more mixed communities like in Rogers Park have much more investment in them relatively than communities or neighborhoods where Blacks coming up from the South, if you know the history, they were not allowed to move into certain neighborhoods. They were not, they didn't get mortgages from certain banks. They were literally redlined, meaning the bank said, we'll give to anybody except if they're trying to move into this neighborhood or if they're this color. So H.O.M.E is dealing with a reality, trying to literally navigate. When you think of the shopping bus, navigating, to a grocery store far away. So we're literally navigating this landscape of racial and economic segregation. So what we try to do, we try to work on the different levels. The main level obviously is services. Okay, no matter what dealing with the root causes of racial segregation will take a lot longer than giving people, fixing that hot water heater leak that people are dealing with right now. Yes, there are not enough groups that do it. There are even private contractors that are afraid to go into these neighborhoods. This is not, this is shameful, and this is not what H.O.M.E is about. So we're doing what we can within the budget that we have and the reality that exists. And what we're trying to do moving into the future, we're working on a new strategic plan, is trying to figure out, while we do these stopgap measures, which are absolutely valuable, that help people live their lives, what can we do to change some of these underlying conditions? What can we do to add more groups to do these kinds of repairs, to add more grocery stores, to add more subsidized housing, so that everybody's lives will be made easier. So right now, so as I say, there's the services that we do, and then we've also been looking at trying to expand our whole governance structure, perhaps adding a community council of people that we've served. We spent the last year doing a little project that we called Listen and Learn, connecting H.O.M.E to our communities, where we talked to a couple of dozen seniors at random that we serve through our community programs to get a sense of how, and they were, out of the 25 people we talked to, 24 were Black and 1 was white, and that was random. I mean, so that's the people that we're generally serving. What is an ideal neighborhood to them? What do they like about their neighborhood? What would they like to see change? What would they like H.O.M.E to be doing? And the general sense that we got, how does racism play in as they perceive it? And the sense that we got is that people really, they like their neighborhood, they like their community, they have they have people around them, they value neighbors, a neighborly community, which doesn't always exist, especially with violence, which people did highlight. But they would like to see more amenities. They'd like to see more, in their, but things that we offer in our buildings, activities, or, they'd like to see centers that they can go and visit. They care about young people. That was one thing that in fact, that's something that is making us think. When we talk to seniors about what concerns them the most, they didn't talk about themselves. They talked about young people. They said young people here, which are primarily in their neighborhoods Black, they said they have no opportunities, or very few good opportunities, for jobs, education, or recreation. So it's making me think, okay, how can H.O.M.E contribute in some way to that situation?
Are you able to make up for some of the lack in those in the marginalized communities? Do you maybe provide a little bit more services to those communities? Evidently, it seems as if you are, right? Like the repair, you're dedicating a lot of resources to the Black communities and the more marginalized communities.
Yes, we absolutely do. That's probably the main way we contribute. And I should mention that all of our community services staff, they're all themselves from the South Side. And H.O.M.E has some recognition because each person has a van, and of course our shopping bus. They all say H.O.M.E on the side. So a lot of people, they just see the bus going around, and we're respected by other agencies too. And in fact, that's something I want to do more of. I love our partnership now with the Renaissance Collaborative. which is a really great organization in Bronzeville that's done a lot of work not only around housing, but also job development and and connecting people to other institutions. So that's something that I see H.O.M.E doing more of. I mean, we have the benefit of being really well respected, really trusted by seniors. I mean, and trust, as you know, is something that's earned. It doesn't just get bestowed. And we've been trusted for years. And I want to see how we can parlay that trust into more partnerships in the communities with other trusted agencies. In fact, that's one of the questions we asked the seniors we talked to. What are the groups that you trust? Because I'm going to trust what they say over like what I might, hear or whatever.
Can you share with us some of the answers that they gave? What groups do they trust?
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of them mention their churches. Though it's funny, some people said, yeah, there's this church, but you might want to check them out. Like, I'm not sure, some of them. Yeah, so it was like both sides, but churches came up, and then my block, my city, my hood came up as an organization. Meals on Wheels also came up.
Yeah, I think we do some PSAs for Meals on Wheels. We should do some for my block, my city, my hood as well.
Yeah.
What about the students? Have students ever done research on how H.O.M.E's work impacts seniors, such as whether there is a positive impact on preventing the onset of dementia?
We have had students working with us. The specific issue of dementia, that would be a good one. I mean, what we do know is more general, which is that isolation, social isolation, you may have heard this statistic, is as bad for your health as like smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. So isolation, depression, all of those contribute to worse physical health overall and stress. And that, in fact, is a big reason. If you've ever read the book called The Death Gap by David Ansell of Rush, that's the life expectancy gap between white neighborhoods in Chicago and Black neighborhoods. In some cases, like 30-year gap. And that has a lot to do with it's not your race, it's the stress and the kind of isolated existence that you're forced to be in. So we feel that bringing community to people is actually as salutary as any medical intervention.
Right. I guess there's that love that just keeps on going around. And then I heard that, for instance, cooking, once it's cooked by a family member, there's love in it. And then that makes the food taste much better. So the environment that seniors are living in, once there's a lot of that community and love going around, that helps everybody's well-being and health as well.
Yes.
What are some of the important milestones of home housing opportunities and maintenance for the elderly?
Milestones, well, as I mentioned, we're hitting our 40th year, so that's a big milestone in 2022. So and so I hope that people will support us and make sure we're around for another 40 years. And other milestones, our Natalie Salmon House is little over 25 years old, so I can mention that. But again, we're excited to be working with to do this building on the south side. We're also working with One Roof Chicago, which wants to do Chicago's first LGBT intergenerational building.
And do you have any idea what neighborhood that might be located in?
They haven't found a site yet, but they're looking on the south side.
And it seems as if I think I saw on the website that you have a second shopping bus now. So right, or are you obtaining a second shopping bus?
No, we just have the one bus.
Oh, well then my
We'd
mistake.
love to have a second.
Yes.
If we can find a nice angel who would support that.
Well, how much would maybe there are some angels listening now. How much do you approximately would a shopping bus cost?
Oh, probably about $80,000 to $100,000, you know, figuring on the bus lease and the personnel. And then of course we have to maintain that over the coming years. So it's not just launching it, but making sure that we keep it up.
And then of
But
course,
the need is so great.
exactly. And then of course there's your driver as well. And
Yes,
you have-
yes.
And the second driver. Mhm.
Yes,
Well, good luck with that. Hopefully you get it.
thank you.
You're welcome. Let's do a Wizard community assessment with you. So WZRD Chicago, being a non-profit radio station, must be responsible to the community we serve. WZRD is mandated to file quarterly issues with the FCC on non-entertainment community-focused programming. And we like to assess the community for these quarterly issue topics with 3 questions. First, what is most important to you? It doesn't have to pertain to home, but if you wanted to, of course it can.
Well, I would say that what's most important to me is it's how we treat one another, how society treats one another. And as I was thinking about this, I immediately thought of this quote by Hubert Humphrey, you know, who was vice president, ran for president. And I'm just going to give you this quote in full. He said, it was once said that the moral test of government is how that government treats those who are in the dawn of life, the children, those who are in the twilight of life, the elderly, and those who are in the shadows of life, the sick, the needy, and the handicapped. And I feel that's so important. It's not just how government treats people at the dawn of life and the twilight of life, but all of our entities. And we're so driven by a market economy that sees people only, and it extends to nature too. We're only important insofar as we are, quote unquote, contributing to the economy. So what happens to children, to people who are retired, to people with disabilities, to nature, you know, as well, to things that don't, quote unquote, contribute monetary wealth or widgets to the economy. And I feel that we are just not dealing with that properly. And there was a piece in the New York Times on Sunday, yesterday, about a new study from Stanford University's Center on Longevity. And what it looked at is the fact that we're all living longer, but we have a society in which we're just so focused on learning, on all this activity going on in our middle years. And we just don't, so then we have these people who are living longer. What happens to them? You know, like they're quote unquote not contributing. And I must add that if you're low income, it's even worse, or person of color, or, even, marginalized in so many different directions. So I would say it's important to me that we figure out how within, because we're not going to do anything to change capitalism. That's where we're at. So with the kind of economy that we have, how are we going to make aging successful? How do we make people feel that they are, and not just feel, but actually be still meaningful in society?
Value. I think what you're saying is how do we make people feel that they are valued because they are.
Because yeah, we're valued because we are simply, we are human beings, and every person has innate value. And if we operated from that kind of ethic, we'd have a very different kind of society than what we now have.
Second, what long-term problem must we address?
I would say that the long-term problem that we must address is that gap. Whether it's the death gap that I mentioned, that David Ansell pointed out, that people, these inequities, these racial inequities, economic inequities, that's something that we absolutely need to deal with in the long term. How do we improve not just, and it's not just healthcare, it's every system, housing, healthcare, education, transportation, to make it such that your zip code doesn't determine everything about your life. I don't know if you know that it's been found that your zip code where you're born, or determines your future more than any other single piece of data. That's wrong.
And what problem must be resolved now?
The problem that I think must be resolved now is the issue of nursing homes. That is such a pressing issue. It pains me if you've been walked in a nursing home to visit somebody, or if you've been in one yourself, they are appalling. People are warehoused. I mean, it's been highlighted during COVID that so many of our deaths have been in nursing homes. They're so poorly regulated. People eat such unhealthful foods. I mean, I mentioned that with H.O.M.E, we bought emergency groceries for people. One of the people that we bought groceries for was a man in a nursing home, because he had been participated in our moving program. The food was so bad that, and I talked to him on the phone, like, it not only was the food there bad, but people were there with COVID. It was just terrible. And I think we have to figure out a way as a society that when we're dealing with low-income seniors, what happens is it's become a proxy for affordable housing. Even if they're not sick, if they're facing homelessness, they go to a nursing home. That's wrong. If you're sick and in a nursing home, you need to be treated better. Not ignored, eating healthful foods. Is there a way? One of the things that we'd love to figure out, I would love to, it's not going to happen anytime soon, but how can we apply H.O.M.E.'s intergenerational model to nursing homes or to supportive living? When people start to experience memory loss and they really can't live on their own, can we figure something out that's better than a nursing home situation? And I think that I suppose it might be considered a long-term problem, but I feel like this is a problem we need to resolve today.
Exactly. Well, H.O.M.E could take the lead on that, and maybe others will follow the lead.
I hope so.
Okay. So again, how can seniors reach home housing opportunities and maintenance for the elderly to apply for your services?
Well, thank you. People can reach us at our website, www.homeseniors.org. And they can also call us. Our main number is, and I should always remember it, it's 773-921-3200. That's 773-931-3200. So people can reach us that way. And that's also a way, if people want to make a donation to us, they can also go to our website.
Okay. Well, that was,
And tomorrow is Giving Tuesday, by the way. So hopefully, people, please remember us. Our goal is to raise $30,000 tomorrow.
and again, repeat your website again, so that hopefully someone will pick up the phone now and go to your website now.
Thank you.
Home Seniors, the website name again?
Homeseniors.org.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Gail Schechter, the Executive Director for Home, Housing Opportunities and Maintenance for the Elderly. And thank you, Bill Morton, President of Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce, for joining us today on WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM.
Thank you.
Thank you.